Okay, so today we're going to talk about relationships, which is involving others in our journey, because what the science shows is that when we involve other people in our journey, our likelihood of reaching our destination goes up, because we like to do things we care about with people we care about. So we're going to talk about this for a little bit, but to start, I want to show you one of my favorite YouTube videos, behavioral YouTube videos of all times. Okay, if I start this, Dave, Marley, and Kara, and you can't hear it, will you let me know? Because I changed the settings so that it will share the computer sound, but I don't, if it creates an echo, let me know and I'll turn off share computer sound, okay? Because I want you to be able to hear the words. This is an old video, clearly.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality, but little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups before. Now, here's a fella with his hat on in the elevator. First he makes a full turn to the rear and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, we'll open the door, everybody's changed positions. Now we'll see if we can use group pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. Notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we could reverse the procedure? Watch.
All right, so what do we learn from that? What does that tell you about relationships? Sarah?
Well, you know, it tells you that the behavior of others really does influence you. And it can either influence you for something that's not important or even bad, could be bad, or it could be an influence for good.
Yeah.
And the more people, probably the bigger the influence.
So I love that you caught that. So we talk a lot about gravity, right? So what creates gravity is mass. So the more mass, the more the gravitational pull. When it comes to relationships and who we spend time with, the more the mass, the more the gravitational pull towards that behavior. So in fact, there's this quote that I love, not that one, yeah. So Jim Rohn, who's a motivational speaker, said this. He said, "We are the average of the people we spend the most time with." We are the average of the people that we spend the most time with. Now, for a second, I want you to actually write down, if this were true, who would you be? if you were the average of the people you spent your most time with, write down just a few, 5, 6, 7, 8 describing words, adjectives, whatever, of who you would be if this were true. Harry's like, I would be 6 years old.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. Like, be all my kids.
This is one of those, questions that we ask in this class are often, you have a choice of how honest you actually want to be. And the more honest you are, the better outcome you will get. So now that you've written down a few of those, I want you to compare it to your identity statement and ask yourself, is the average of the people I spend the most time with in or out of alignment with my identity statement? Anybody come up with, have an aha moment there where you were like, oh, shoot.
I'm kind of having the opposite experience with that question. Because I feel like, especially right now, I'm being very purposeful about the people in my life. And I'm just grateful that they are such good people, all of the people that I'm associating with and who are supporting me and helping me, and that I spend time with and share my story with. That they're all such good people and help me to to grow in ways that I need.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. This is one of those things that I wish I could do with every teenager, because so very often the gravitational pull of your peers, draws you in a direction that does not align with who you are and where you want to go in life. And our need for relationships, our need for belonging, our need to feel loved and accepted and valued is so high, we will often compromise our identity and our objective or our purpose in order to fit in. And feel that sense of that relationship. This is one of the reasons that I believe, in my critical context as a parent, one of my objectives in that critical context is to actually have a friendship with my kids, a relationship that is a friendship, that is not a leader and is not a disciplinarian and is not like, I sometimes have those things that I have to do, but it's critical to me that they feel love, belonging, acceptance, and just friendship, like that they actually think of me as a friend. Because in the absence of relationships, our identities suffer. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but back to this question of we are the average of the people that we spend the most time. And this idea of mass. And it doesn't, kind of going to Alex's point on, leadership, where he's going to find some leadership right now is a YouTube channel. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be someone, it's sort of the, there's the adage, you are what you eat. Or maybe it's better said, you are what you consume. And whatever media you consume, you become. It has a gravitational pull on you. And so you can have relations. It is possible in today's age to have relationships with people that we never actually get to meet. But it draws you. It creates a gravitational pull. People are infectious, and they will infect us with their ideas. They will infect us with their perspective. They will infect us with their narrative. They will infect us with their attitude. Like, all of these things have an influence over us. And it's this principle that we've talked about of sympathetic resonance, which is that we all emit our attitudes, our beliefs, our thoughts. And so we have to be really careful and cognizant and aware of the people with whom we spend any amount of real time. Because we cannot help but be pulled by that effect of gravity. So Google does lots of, are you familiar with Project Aristotle?
Smarter, Faster, Better. I just started reading it.
Yes, that's very good. I got that one in there. That's a really good one. Kuig. Author is
Charles Duhigg.
Charles Duhigg, that's right. How do you pronounce it?
I don't know how.
I don't either. I've always wondered, like, Charles Duhigg, it's like Duhigg. I can't remember. So Google studied, has been sort of on this mission to understand what leads to high-performing people, what leads to high-performing teams. And so they did this big, massive, multi-year research study where they studied the highest performing teams. And they try to identify, well, what are the common elements or characteristics? Like, what is common? What do they have in common of all of these high-performing teams? And their findings were a little bit surprising. They thought that what they would find is that they have the strongest leaders, or they have the most vision, or they have the people that have the most skills, or they have all of these different things, and actually they didn't find that at all. Their results were really, really astounding. They found that one of the top things was the people on the team felt like they were making a difference. It had to do with impact. They felt like there was a purpose to their work. And they trusted, loved, and appreciated the people who they worked with. Those were the things. And so they studied this one a little bit more, and they found what they called psychological safety. So people, in fact, so to this day, what they ended up doing is, so psychological safety, they found that people contribute their best when they feel safe to take risks, to try to be their best, and to try to do things that are maybe a little bit beyond where they are today. And they felt the psychological safety to do that, and that caused for the best behavior, which kind of tells us, again, going back to our objective, like, if your objective doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. The teams where the people were willing to stretch a little bit beyond where they thought they could go and do work they didn't know they could achieve, like, they took risks. And because they felt that psychological safety, they were high performing. So it's interesting what they did is they figured out, they're like, okay, well, how do you measure psychological safety? How do you make sure that you're bringing people who have and so it's kind of funny, they found there were two primary indicators of whether or not someone would create a psychologically safe environment. One was a high level of empathy. And so now, to this day, when you interview at Google, they will give you a test that's called Reading the Mind in the Eyes. It's fascinating. You can actually go online, you just Google it, and you can go take the test, and it's free. And it's like 30 questions or so, and each question is simply a set of eyes. And then under the question, it asks you, what is this person feeling? Just by their set of eyes. And then you get done, and it gives you an accuracy score. The people who were most able to understand what someone is feeling based on just observing their eyes are the most empathetic. They have, and what they found is that if you have that sense of empathy, if you can see in someone's eyes how they're feeling, then you are aware. It's this sense of awareness. The second thing they found was interesting also. It's what they called conversational turn taking, which means that you know when to shut up and you know when to talk. Like, you know, you have a sense of awareness, of balance. And so now when they interview for those two attributes. They interview for empathy using the reading the mind in the eye test, and for conversational turn taking, because what they know is that it's really these three things, but it's really the quality of the relationships in our lives that allow us to feel psychologically safe to do work that we're not sure we can succeed at, and to believe in an identity that maybe isn't accurate today, but it's what we want to do. It's not who we are, but it's who we want to become. We don't feel safe trying to reach for an identity that is not yet us if we're not surrounded with people with whom we are psychologically safe. Because we have this strong, compulsive need to conform and fit in and be accepted. And you watch it in the elevator, it's just fascinating. Like, we just want to feel like we fit in. And so if we're in an environment with people who don't believe that we can become what we want to become, or who don't think we can reach the objectives that we would have decided, we would rather compromise on our identity and on our objective in order to fit in. That's how strong relationships are. Which is why it's absolutely critical that if we're ever going to become the us that we know that we need to become, if we're ever going to do the things that we know we need to do, we have to surround ourselves with the people who will help us get there. Now, every single sports organization on the planet that is good puts a lot of effort and time and money and science and research assembling the right team. And this is to go play soccer or football. Like, did anybody watch the Super Bowl? Like, I know, it was really not very fun, was it? Like, come on, score already. Like, hello, don't you know it's one of the elements? So these guys spend a fortune assembling a team. Here we are in our life. The most important thing that we will ever do is live. And living means achieving what we're sent to do. It's finding and fulfilling our mission. This is literally the most important thing we will ever do. It deserves us having a team. But people don't think in this regard. People don't think, okay, I know who I am. I've created my identity. I know where I'm going. I know what my objective is. I know what my purpose is. I know what my mission is. I have a plan. I have a way to keep score. And now I'm going to assemble a team that is going to help me get there. For some reason, it's right there. Like, we all know there's teams. Like, teams are not something that is like this brand new concept. Like, whoa, are you kidding? I can assemble a team? It's a concept that's right there, but we don't do it, which is weird. We need to be able to assemble a team that will help us reach our objectives. So we're going to talk about how do we assemble a team and what do we look for as we're assembling a team. But before we do, I want to talk, have we talked about the normalization of deviance yet? Okay. So this phrase gained some popularity recently, well, semi-recently, around 2008 when like Lehman Brothers and like all of these big establishments started to just crumble. And like, so social and behavioral and industrial and organizational psychologists were like, oh my gosh, how on earth could it have gotten that bad? Like, you go in and you look at the behaviors of what was happening and you're like, I don't understand, like, how did this get like this? How could they have deviated so far from center? Well, it's a principle called the normalization of deviance. So here's what happens. We have a bad behavior. And if that bad behavior goes unchecked, it becomes normalized. And in an organization, you might have a leader who starts to behave badly. In a family, you might have someone who starts to behave badly. In any environment, you have any bad behavior that goes unchecked becomes normalized. And then, so, you know, we sort of have this sense of like, we're walking on the line, this is center. And we look way over there and we'd be like, I would never get that far. Like if the line's right there, maybe I'll cross, but I'd never get over there. But over there is relative. It's a sense of how far it is from here. It's not what is that behavior. And so what happens is we cross this line, and now that I would never get over there actually went out as well. And so then we cross another line and we keep getting farther, and now we're like right up against the behavior that we said we would never do, but it just seems not far away right now, because now it's like, well, I never do that. And this is how people, it's how organizations, it's how teams, and we suffer from this in our own lives. So any behavior that we allow to gain mass in our lives creates a gravitational pull, and it sucks us in. And if we don't correct it and stop it and fix it, then we suffer from the normalization of deviance, where now there's not the there's no longer, what's the word that I'm looking for? It was Aesop's fables, the fox. What's the word? The sour grapes suffered from. Shoot, I can't remember. It'll come to me at some random moment, and the next minute I'll shout it out, and I'll be really happy. Anyway, we don't suffer from the same emotional dilemma because we allow a behavior to exist. But it turns out that we are not affected only by our own behaviors, but by behaviors of those around us. And so surrounding ourselves with people who have the behaviors or who exhibit the behaviors of the person we want to become is one of the ways that we become that person. So the normalization of deviance is simply a word that describes what happens if it goes the wrong direction. But it also goes the right direction. Like if you want to be this, what is it called?
A PJ.
A PJ.
Mm-hmm.
A PJ, which stands for parajumper.
But that's not what they. It's weird. It's weird. I've learned all these things in the community lately.
So,
yeah.
So if you want to do that and you know what behaviors are required in order to get there, the more you surround yourself with people who exhibit that type of behavior, the more you start to model that behavior and you normalize the other direction. And so it's critical that we assemble a team that pulls us in the right direction. So when it comes to assembling our team, here's some of the questions to ask for. So as we pull this up, I want you to write down the one or two people. So there's a number of these that are going to pop up. I want you to write down the one or two people who instantly pop into your mind the moment you see this, okay? In assembling your team, these are some of the people that you want to look for. People who energize you. So write down who in your life energizes you. Who in your life, when you're around them, you just feel that power, an energy, that like, oh, I want to just be better. You guys know these people, right? They're just people who, like, when you're around them, they just they just energize you for some reasons, and it's a number of different things that can cause that, but it's very powerful and it's very real. Okay, so the next one, look for people who see the best in you. So write down in your life right now, who is it that you believe truly sees you for who you can become, not who you are? Who sees the very best in you, just naturally? Next, look for people who make you want to be better. This is different than the people who energize you. People who energize you are catalysts. They're the people who like just activate the energy inside of you and they just like make you want to go do stuff. But then there are people who actually make you want to be better. There are people who, when you're around them, it's like, man, I want to step up. Like, I want to be more. Who is that in your life? All right, next. Look for people who will hold you accountable. So we talked about this a little bit when we talked about leadership. These are the people, we talked about radical candor. These are the people who love you enough and who are open enough that they will hold you accountable. Who in your life do you feel like would hold you accountable in the right way? Because there's a right way and there's not a right way. Next, look for people who will help you maintain perspective. There are people that we know who tend to just see the bigger picture. They think differently than us. Who is that for you? And lastly, look for people who will complement your strengths. So if all you do is surround yourself with people who are the same as you, all you'll ever be is the same. So who complements your strengths? And now you have a team. This is your first draft pick of your team. Did anybody have a person who showed up in multiple categories? Yeah? Yeah. Carrie, you did too? Yeah. So this is a critical relationship that you have. There are those magic people who get put into our lives because they are the right people for us at the right time. And when you have someone who has shown up in multiple categories, this is someone who you're supposed to have on your team. This is someone who is supposed to be in your life, nurture, and protect and invest in that relationship. Because remember, every relationship will entropy if you fail to invest in it. If you have someone who shows up in multiple categories, this is someone who is in your life for a reason, and you need them on your team. most likely they need you on their team too, because relationships tend to be symbiotic. You guys know it's, symbiotic. So relationships tend to be symbiotic. The best relationships are symbiotic. What else did you see as you looked at your first draft picks? Anything stand out, Kara?
My husband is actually at least in 4 of those categories.
Yes, hallelujah. Like, I just want to give him a round of applause. Can you tell him that I slow clapped for him in class today?
Yeah, I will.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. Anything else? Anything that stood out as you looked at your first draft pick? Are these people who were close to you, far from you? Are they accessible? They're accessible? Austin, you nodded.
Yeah, well, like, some of them are, some of them aren't. Like,
Some of them are more than others.
yeah, it includes several members of my immediate family, so.
So if you have someone who is on your first draft pick, if you have someone who came to your mind who is inaccessible, then you have to find out, because if this is someone who has popped up, you have to find out, what can I do to strengthen that connection? This is a relationship that I need to invest in. And it might mean that you have to sacrifice a little bit. But if this is a person who is truly a first draft pick for your team, it's a relationship that matters, and you need to find out, how can you strengthen that relationship? What can I sacrifice? What can I invest? What can I give? What can I do? Because this person is critical to my team, and a team is critical to my success. So remember this, the strength of your team is absolutely, go ahead.
Is your team. Or it just reminded me of what the Jazz say, like, the strength of our team is our team.
Yeah, it's like the strength of the pack is in the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is in something like that. I can't remember. It's in, yeah, anyway. The strength of your team is directly in correlation to the likelihood of your ability to be successful. So as you reflect on your critical context, take just a minute and rate the level of the strength of your team for each of your either objectives or your critical context. So 10 means I think I have the right team. 1 means I don't have any team and I really need to go find one. 5 is like, I've got a few pretty, so look at your objectives and ask yourself, do I have a team? Because if you've decided it's an objective, like, you should assemble a team to get there, because it matters. So look at your objectives and rate them. And this, of course, this score will give you some direction as to what you need to now go do. By the way, Austin, since entrepreneurship is one of your critical contexts, Pete, so can you share with us how important assembling the right team is in building a company? Like, just give us your random off-the-cuff thoughts on that. So Pete's built many companies. So he's done this.
It's extremely important. It's really, it's making or breaking, with the right people. And if you have the wrong people, you could lose everything. It's extremely important to have people that complement each other versus, putting a team together that,
they're all the same person.
Balance,
Yeah.
has same skill sets. But more importantly, that they gel and work together, even though they complement each other, they still have to work together well. They have to gel. There's a story that Red Auerbach, he was coaching the Boston Celtics, was asked, are you going to play the best 5 players on your team, the most talented ones? He said, I do have the most talented players on my team, and I do have 5 of them that are extremely talented. But No, those are not my starters. So he didn't play the best players, talent-wise. He played 3 best players, and then he complemented them with 2 other role players that didn't want to be stars. So it's critical. It's very, very critical to have the right team and make sure they gel and work together and complement each other.
I would say, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I would say that it's more important to have the right team than the right idea. Because if you have the right team,
100%. You can, if you put the right team together,
yeah,
you can take copper and they'll turn it to gold,
they'll turn it to gold.
and vice versa.
This, I would tell you, while it's true in business, it's true in life. If you have, and maybe Kara, this might be could be informative or influential in how you move forward. If you have obscurity around an objective, if you have, lack of clarity or lack of resolve or lack of definition, or, you can't feel like it's more important to assemble the right team than to have absolute certainty of where you're going and how you're going to get there, because your team can help you do that. This is the beautiful thing about a team. This is the beautiful thing about involving others on our journey, is you don't have to be the expert on everything. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to, it doesn't all rest on your shoulders. When you have a team, you have people who you can rely on. Now it's fascinating because lots of things come out of having a team. Number one, I've got the jumble here of elements. Oh yeah, I don't have this one. Number one, they help you maintain perspective, our very first principle now. A team helps you maintain perspective because they're not you. They don't think like you. They help you keep true to who you are, the right team. They help you work towards your objective. They help you, when you use your team and score, now all of a sudden you have like accountability. And it's so like a team takes all of the elements and it creates a whole new dynamic for each one of them. But we have to learn to assemble a team. I love this quote. Treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be, and he will become as he can and should be. So as we look at assembling, as you look at assembling your team, I just want to do one final reference back to this law of gravity. And we talked about it on leadership. Because when you invite a leader to come into your life, you are giving them a voice. And that voice creates a narrative. And the story we tell ourselves most often is the story most likely to come true. Well, the same is true when we assemble a team. While I want to be absolutely crystal clear how important our team is to our ability to reach our objective, you have to make sure that you assemble that team carefully, because you give that person license to create a narrative that influences you. And that story they tell, the attitude that they convey, the perspectives that they have, the beliefs that they harbor, like all of these things will now be an influence in your life. And so assemble a team, but be disciplined and deliberate about what team you assemble, because you are giving them power in your life. And this can be hugely powerful. It can also be detrimental. You have to make sure to assemble the right team. Be very careful and assemble the right team. But when you do, holy cow, the power that comes out of it is absolutely amazing. What you can do with multiple people, with a team, is so much better. So I don't know if you knew this, but you probably heard it. So they have found that pack horses, the horses where they pull big loads. They used to do this a lot. They don't so much anymore. They have tractors now for these things. But a pack horse can pull 800 pounds by themselves. So you would think, okay, we'll put 2 pack horses and now we can pull 1,600 pounds, 3,200 pounds. No, 2,400 pounds is actually what they can pull. Not twice as much, 3 times as much. because they are working together. When you have a team, it's incredible what you can accomplish. And so we talked before about the elephant and the rope, self-imposed limitations, the fleas in the box, and how we tell ourselves a story looking back at our lives and we're like, yeah, I've tried that, and I tried it, and I tried it. I tried to jump out of the box and I couldn't, and now I'm convinced I can't because I haven't been able to. It's functional fixedness. We look back at our lives and we see only the things that we have been able to do, and therefore we limit our future based on that past perspective. And that's false. It's a self-inhibiting philosophy. Because it's possible that you didn't have the right team and that you were trying to do it yourself. Like, this is one of the reasons why team is so important. It allows us the ability to look back and say, I might have failed at that. I might have failed over and 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 over again, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't still try to do it. It just means I need to be more deliberate about having a plan and keeping score and building momentum and creating an environment and having access to leaders and assembling the team that is going to help me be successful. So you can look back at if there's something in your life that you have failed at that you really want to accomplish, look back and ask yourself, what team did I have access to? Most likely you didn't. And so the question is, how can you assemble a team today that will allow you to achieve the results that you want to achieve? Last comment, and we'll get to our homework, is this quote from Dan Gilbert on his book, Stumbling on Happiness. By the way, this is a wonderful, beautiful book. I would highly recommend it. Austin, you don't read enough, so you should probably read this one. Great book. Dan Gilbert, by the way, is one of the leading behavioral economists today. He said this. So he studies the science of happiness as part of his thing. And he says, if I wanted to predict your happiness, this was after years of research. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to predict your happiness and I could only know one thing about you, I wouldn't want to know about your gender, religion, health, or income. I'd want to know about the strength of your relationships with your friends and family, the leading indicator of someone's happiness, how strong their relationships are. So if you want there to be more light and happiness and joy in your life, choose to invest in the right relationships. And that's the outcome that you'll get. So your homework, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is this. Assemble your team. Assemble your team for each objective and or critical context. You can choose. And if you feel daunted by the prospect of having to assemble a team for all of those things, then choose your focal context and assemble a team. And be serious about assembling a team. Like, actually go do it and call them your team. Like, you're on my team. You're my first draft pick. Next, find an accountability partner. You are way, 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 way more likely to reach your objective if you have someone who will hold you accountable. And make sure that accountability partner is on your team. But find an accountability partner, because you can have a team and not have accountability. You can architect it that way. So have a team, but make sure you have someone who's going to hold you accountable. Give them permission to hold you accountable. And sometimes you have to be deliberate. So like, sometimes you have to be upfront about that. The role that you are hoping that they play on your team. Please hold me accountable. Here is the way I'm going to keep score. Here is my objective. Here is my score. Please hold me accountable. If you do those two things, if you assemble a team and you have an accountability partner, your chance of success of reaching your objective has just gone through the roof.